You know, there's something about the graveyard shift that makes you feel like you're the only person alive. It's 2:07 a.m., and the red on-air light is bleeding into the dim studio like a wound. Outside the windows, the desert is nothing but an ocean of black, broken only by the blinking red tower light that warns low-flying planes to stay away. I've been hosting Night Signal for 7 years now, taking calls from insomniacs, truckers, and conspiracy junkies. Usually, it's a mix of harmless UFO sightings and ghost stories. But tonight feels different. Maybe it's the way the static has been acting up all evening, hissing in strange patterns, like breathing. Or maybe it's the quiet. There's no rain, no wind rattling the glass. Just silence between the walls, pressing in like the studio is underwater. I clear my throat, leaning toward the mic. All right, folks, we've got a long night ahead. Lines are open. Tell me your story, something you've seen, something you've felt, something you can't explain. The phone rings instantly. One ring. Then a click. No caller ID. You're on Night Signal. A voice cuts me off. 10 stories, it says. It's a man's voice, steady, low, and without any trace of emotion. I'm going to tell you 10 stories. And when I'm done, you'll understand. I almost laugh, thinking it's some prank. All right, caller. Let's hear number 1. There's a pause, then the sound of a breath. Wet, like air drawn past something rotten. Story 1. In 1983, in a town called Carter's Hollow, a boy named Daniel Ross vanished on Halloween night. They said he ran away, but I saw him, 2 hours after they started looking, standing in the middle of County Road 6. He was wearing his costume, a skeleton mask. He didn't move when my car came close. He didn't blink. His hands were at his sides. And when I stopped, rolled down the window, and called to him, he lifted his mask, and it wasn't a boy's face underneath. It was teeth. Not human teeth. Hundreds of them. Rows and rows. Where eyes should be, where skin should be. And when I screamed, he pulled the mask back down and walked into the cornfield. I never saw him again. I leaned back, forcing a chuckle. That's creepy, friend, but Carter's Hollow? That's not even on the map. I know, the voice says. Story 2 will be worse. Then, click, the line goes dead. For a moment, I just sit there, staring at the blinking phone light, the dead tone humming in my ear. The air in the studio feels heavier, like the temperature has dropped a few degrees. I take a sip of cold coffee, trying to shake it off. Just a weird caller, I tell myself. But here's the thing. I know Carter's Hollow. It was a mining settlement that burned down in 1964. No one's lived there since. But in the archives at the station, there's an old clipping from the Carter Times, dated November 2nd, 1983. It's about a missing boy, Daniel Ross. The article says exactly what the caller said. Halloween night. Disappeared without a trace. I never mentioned that clipping on the air. Hell, I haven't looked at it in years. The phone rings again. No caller ID. Night Signal, you're on. Silence. Then, story 2. My chest tightens, and my producer's chair feels suddenly far too small. I almost hang up, but something makes me keep listening. In 1994, in a diner off Highway 19, a man walked in wearing a soaked trench coat. It wasn't raining. He sat at the counter and ordered black coffee. Didn't speak a word for 20 minutes. Then he leaned toward the waitress and whispered something that made her drop the pot and run screaming into the parking lot. When the cook came out to ask what happened, the man in the trench coat was gone. But there was water on the stool and the shape of 2 bare, webbed feet printed on the tile. I glanced toward the security monitor. The studio door is locked. The hallway outside is empty. But that heavy, pressing silence is worse now. It's almost like the building is listening. What's the point of these stories? I ask. You'll see. The caller says, and hangs up again. The rest of the segment, I try to keep things moving, take a call about a UFO sighting, a trucker's story about a woman in white on the roadside, but my mind keeps drifting back to that voice. At the next commercial break, I step outside into the hallway. The air smells faintly of something metallic, like rust or blood. When I return to the studio, there's a sheet of paper on my desk. I didn't leave it there. It's yellowed, brittle, like it's been sitting in a drawer for decades. Typed in neat black ink are the words, 10 stories you can't explain, for him. There's no signature. Just a date in the corner, tonight. The phone rings again. Story 3, the voice says. And just like that, I know I'm not going to make it to sunrise without hearing them all. Story 3. The caller says, and the sound of his breathing fills the line again, slow, even, unhurried, like he has all the time in the world. 1997. A farmhouse outside Clayton. Family of 3. Neighbors said they heard screaming for hours, but no one called the sheriff. When they finally checked the next morning, the doors were locked from the inside. All the lights on. Dinner still on the table. Plates, silverware, even the wine glasses untouched. And the family? Gone. But here's the thing, he pauses. The static rises in my headphones, thick and gritty, almost drowning him out. The plates were still warm. The wine was still swirling, like it had just been poured. And there were 3 sets of footprints leading away from the kitchen table. Bare feet. All heading in different directions. All stopping in the middle of the floor. A faint click, and he's gone again. I swallow hard and jot down notes on the yellowed paper. Story 1, Carter's Hollow Boy. Story 2, Highway 19 Diner. Story 3, Clayton Farmhouse. But what gnaws at me is how the stories feel. Not just spooky, specific, detailed in ways you don't get from campfire tales. Every one of them is tethered to a real place. I know Clayton. I used to drive through it on my way to school. The studio's clock ticks over to 2:46 a.m., and I lean back toward the mic, trying to sound calm. All right, listeners, we're getting some strange calls tonight. If you've got something you can't explain, hit that number and let's hear it. 2 calls later, both regulars, my phone light flashes again. No caller ID. Story 4, he says. Story 4, 2005. Winter. A woman named Leah drives home from her night shift at the mill. It's snowing hard. She sees a man standing on the roadside, waving for help. No jacket, no hat. Just a plain shirt and slacks, already dusted white. She pulls over, opens her door, but the man doesn't move. She gets out, thinking maybe he's frozen. And when she gets close enough to see his face, it's her brother. The one who drowned in Lake Redding 10 years before. His lips are blue, his hair dripping wet, but his eyes are wide open. Alive. She runs back to her car, locks the door, peels away. She never tells anyone. The next day, her car won't start. When the mechanic checks it, the passenger seat is soaking wet. I rub my eyes. The way he says Leah sticks with me. The vowels are drawn out, careful, like he's not reading this from a page, like he knows her. When I try to get him to stay on the line, he hangs up again. And that's when I notice the static. It's been in my headphones since the first call, but now it's pulsing, like a slow, steady throb. I turn down the volume, but it's not coming from the board. It's in the room. I pull my headphones off. The sound's still there, faint but real. The phone rings. No ID. Story 5, the voice says. Story 5, 2011. A man buys an old camcorder from a thrift store. Inside is a tape marked Play Me. The footage is a shaky walk through a house. White walls, beige carpet, no furniture. In every room, the camera lingers on a single spot on the wall. A faint shadow, about the size of a man, stretched tall and thin. In the last room, the camera turns toward a mirror. But the man holding it isn't there, just the shadow. And then, from behind the mirror, 2 hands press against the glass. When he finishes, the line clicks. I'm breathing too fast now, my palms slick against the desk. Something is happening here. This isn't just a weird caller. He's building something. 5 stories down. 5 to go. I glance at the clock. 3:22 a.m. The dead hour. The phone rings again before I can touch it. I snatch it up, but it's not him. It's my producer, calling from home. Hey, she says, voice shaky. Is this someone else in the studio with you? No. Why? Because I've been listening to the feed, and after that last story, I heard someone whisper your name. Over and over. My mouth goes dry. I look toward the glass window that faces the dark hallway. For a split second, I think I see movement, just the faintest ripple, like heat rising from asphalt. But the hallway is still. The paper on my desk is different now. Same yellowed sheet, but under the first 3 notes I wrote, someone's added in neat, block letters. Story 4, Winter Road. Story 5, the camcorder. I didn't write that. The phone rings again. Story 6, the voice says. And just before the click, I swear I hear someone else breathing on the line. Story 6, the caller says, and there's a delay before he begins. Just enough time for me to notice that the static in my headphones isn't a single hiss anymore. It's layered, like dozens of faint voices whispering all at once. Story 6, 2014. A high-rise in Chicago. Security guard on the night shift is making rounds when the fire alarm starts blaring. He heads to the 23rd floor. The lights are flickering, hallway empty. He hears a knock from one of the apartment doors, Unit 2314. He knocks back. 3 slow raps. The door creaks open an inch. No one inside. Just an empty room. But he swears the walls are breathing. In, out, in, out. And then the alarm stops. The door slams. And when he calls it in, they tell him, there is no 23rd floor in that building. There never has been. The click cuts him off. I take my headphones off again, but the whispering sound doesn't go away. It's in the air now, just under the hum of the studio lights. At this point, I should kill the segment, play old calls, anything to ride out the shift. But my chest feels tight with something worse than fear. Curiosity. Like I'm meant to hear all 10. The phone blinks again. No ID. Story 7, the voice says. Story 7, 2018. A man wakes up in a motel room. Cheap floral bedspread. TV playing static. He doesn't remember checking in. He gets up, tries the door, it's unlocked. The hallway outside is too long, stretching both ways into shadow. He walks toward the front desk, but the hall keeps going. The numbers on the doors start counting down, 12, 11, 10, until they hit 0. The last door is open. Inside is the motel room he woke up in. Same bedspread, same static. And lying on the bed is himself, still asleep. He hangs up again. I glance toward the studio window. The hallway light outside is flickering now, slow, irregular pulses. My gut tells me I should leave, but the phone rings before I can move. Story 8, the voice says. Story 8, 2020. Small coastal town. Woman walking her dog at dawn. The tide is low, revealing an old wooden staircase leading down into the sand. She's lived there her whole life. Never seen it before. She follows it down, but halfway the air gets colder. The ocean sound fades. And she hears knocking from under the sand. Rhythmic. Insistent. She turns and runs. When she comes back later with the sheriff, the staircase is gone. Just flat, wet sand. But the dog keeps staring at the same spot, tail between its legs, growling. My throat is tight. I don't even try to ask him why these stories matter. I'm starting to see the pattern without his help. They're all about places and people trapped, caught in something wrong. The clock reads 4:04 a.m. My fingers drum against the desk. The phone rings. Story 9, he says. And his tone is different now. Quieter. Almost intimate. Story 9, 2012. A little boy sits in the back of his mother's car, waiting in the parking lot of a small-town radio station. It's dark. She's inside, dropping off a tape for the night DJ. The boy watches the studio windows. In one of them, he sees a man with headphones on, speaking into a mic. Behind the man, something is standing. Tall. Thin. No face. Just smooth skin stretched where features should be. The boy blinks, and it's gone. But when his mother gets back in the car, she says, "Don't look at the man in the window." I can't breathe. Because I remember that night. I was maybe 8 years old. My mom brought me here after hours while she filled in for the old DJ. I was in the car. I did look at the window. I never told anyone what I saw. My hands are shaking so hard, I almost dropped the phone. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper. There's no click this time. The caller stays on the line. "You already know," he says. And then, faintly, in the background, like a second voice speaking through his throat, comes a sound I've been hearing all night, but refusing to name. The same low, wet whisper that filled the room the moment he called. It says my name. Over, and over, and over. The phone goes dead. The studio clock clicks over to 4:13 a.m. The line rings again. This time, I don't answer right away. I know it's him. And I know this will be the 10th story. The phone rings, each chime echoing in the dead air of the studio like it's coming from somewhere too far away and too close at the same time. I let it ring twice. 3 times. Then I answer. No greeting this time. Story 10, the voice says. Story 10, tonight. 4:15 a.m. A man sits alone in a radio station booth, surrounded by dark hallways and locked doors. He's been listening to stories all night, thinking they're just calls. But the building's been empty since midnight. The phone isn't connected to the outside line anymore. The red on air light isn't even plugged in. The sound in his headphones isn't static, it's breathing. And in the reflection of the glass between him and the empty hall, he sees something moving behind him. I spin in my chair. The hallway is dark, lit only by the flickering overhead bulb, but nothing's there. Still, the glass in the studio window feels different now. Darker, almost like a mirror. "Who are you?" I demand. He doesn't answer, but the breathing grows louder in my ear, and then, so quietly I almost miss it, another voice joins his. It's my voice. It says, "You finish the story, and I'll let you go." A soft knock echoes through the booth. Not from the door, from the glass. 3 slow raps. I stand, my legs unsteady. My reflection in the window is wrong. Too pale, too still. The eyes aren't mine. The mouth is smiling when I'm not. The knock comes again. This time, the glass shivers under my palm. The phone, still in my hand, crackles. "Open the door," the caller says. "They want to meet you." I shake my head, backing toward the console. My producer's number is still on the call list. I jab the button, praying she picks up. The line connects, but the voice that answers isn't hers. "She's gone," the caller says. "Everyone's gone." This is the last voice you'll hear. The whispering around me swells until it's almost deafening. I can't tell if it's inside my head or in the air itself. The overhead bulb in the hallway pops, plunging it into darkness. And then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not from the hall, but from inside the studio. I whirl around. The chair I was just sitting in is moving, turning slowly, as if someone invisible just sat down. The yellowed sheet of paper on the desk is gone. In its place is a fresh, white page. Typed in clean black ink are the words, "10 stories you can't explain, told." Beneath it, in smaller letters, "Now you're part of them." The voice on the phone laughs, low, almost human, but with a rasp underneath like wine through broken glass. "Look in the glass," it says. I don't want to, but I do. The reflection is no longer me in the booth. It's the same room, but empty. And behind the empty chair, in the dark hallway, something is standing. Tall. Thin. Its skin is the color of ash. No eyes. No mouth. But the faint suggestion of a face pressed just under the surface, like something waiting to push through. It raises one hand, long, bony fingers, and places it flat against the glass. I stagger back, tripping over the headphone cord. The moment I hit the floor, the phone cuts out. The studio is dead silent. For a heartbeat, I think it's over. Then I hear it, right next to my ear. Not from the headphones. Not from the phone. A whisper. Story 11. The lights go out. When the lights die, the darkness in the studio isn't just absence. It's thick. Heavy. Like it has weight. The only sound is my breathing, ragged and too fast. But even that is fading under the low hiss that's been with me all night. Only now it's no longer whispering my name. It's whispering everything. Sentences, phrases, voices overlapping until it's a tide of sound pressing into my skull. Some are familiar, the callers from earlier. Some are strangers. Some sound like people I've never met, but should know. Some sound like me. I push myself up from the floor, hands trembling so hard I can barely keep them on the desk. The board is dead, no power. The on-air light is dark. But the phone rings. In the pitch black, that sound is wrong. Too loud. Too close. It's not coming from the console. It's coming from the middle of the room. I reach out, fingers brushing cold plastic. I lift the receiver. No voice. Just breathing. If this is story 11, I say, trying to steady my voice, I don't want to hear it. The breathing stops. Then, you already did. And that's when I realize, story 11 isn't another call. It's me. The window glass to the hallway glows faintly, like it's catching a light from somewhere deep inside the dark. Slowly, shapes begin to form. Not reflections, but scenes. The Carter's Hollow boy, standing in the road with that mask. The trench coat man, leaving wet footprints. The empty farmhouse table. Leah's dead brother in the snow. The camcorder's shadow. The floor that never existed. The motel room with 2 sleeping selves. The staircase in the sand. The boy in the parking lot staring at the faceless thing. Me, right now, holding a dead phone in the dark. All 10 stories, looping over each other, folding into each other, until they're not stories anymore. They're moments. They're real. And they all have one thing in common. They end with the same sound, the whispering. The glow in the glass brightens until it's the only light in the room. And in that pale shimmer, I see them. Every person from every story, standing in the hall, shoulder to shoulder, their faces turned toward me. Some are missing features. Some are soaked through. Some are pale with frost. All of them are perfectly still. The tall, thin figure stands behind them, its head tilted like it's studying me. It raises its hand, palm out. The glass between us isn't a window anymore. It's rippling. Soft. A voice, his voice, comes from somewhere just behind my ear. Your turn. I stumble backward, shaking my head, but the room is shrinking. The console, the walls, the floor, they're bending inward, folding me toward the glass. My hands press against it. It's cold, but it gives under my touch, like the surface of a pond. For a moment, I can't breathe. The voices on the other side are louder now, chanting something I can't make out. The thin figure leans closer. And where its face should be, I see my own. The world tilts. I fall forward through. I'm standing in the hallway now. The studio is on the other side of the glass, empty except for a dark figure slouched in my chair. It's wearing my headphones, speaking into my mic. And in my own voice, it says, "Welcome back to Night Signal. I've got 10 stories you can't explain." The red-on-air light flicks back to life. Somewhere far away, in houses and cars and dark bedrooms, the listeners hear my voice telling the first story again. They don't know it's not me. The hallway around me is endless, lined with doors. Each one is closed. Behind each, I hear a different voice calling for help. I start walking, because I know now, this is where the stories live. And I'm part of them. The recording of that night still exists. One unbroken hour after the last call, nothing but a low, inhuman whisper. And then, at the very end, my voice, flat, cold, and not quite mine, saying, Story 11.